Joining us now is Ian Reifowitz. He's a historical studies professor at the State University of New York State College. So, Ian, I'd like to get your take 1 week out now as the candidates make their final appearances. And with seemingly few undecided voters left, what do you think can change, or can anything change before next Tuesday?
Well, you made an excellent point about undecided voters. I don't see very much changing. One of the interesting data points we have is that the number of, or I should say the percentage of undecided voters is significantly lower at this point than it was at the same point 4 years ago. Roughly speaking, there were probably about 10% of undecided voters with about 2 weeks to go or a week or so to go last time. Now they're maybe about 5%. So there's a lot less up for grabs votes. That's bad news for Donald Trump because he is significantly behind in the polls. One way he could make up the deficit is if he grabbed the undecided voters, but if there aren't that many to get, if there are only 5% undecided voters and the polls show Biden ahead by 7, 8, 9, 10, the math doesn't work for Donald Trump. So the only way he can change the race is if something happens to really shake it up. At this point, I don't see what it would be. Joe Biden did very well in the debates. Donald Trump did poorly. Biden is out there campaigning. Trump is out there campaigning. Nobody's making any governing decisions that are going to change the lives of the American people over the next 7 days. I think it's going to be difficult, not impossible, but difficult for Donald Trump to make up the ground that he has to make up in the next 7 days.
And we've seen the video, the photos, even in our communities, historic, unprecedented when it comes to the number of early voters so far. But we know that there are still a lot of people waiting to cast their ballots on Election Day. How are you reading turnout so far?
Well, turnout is very, very heavy, but the problem is we don't know what to compare it to because we can't compare it to previous elections held during the pandemic. There haven't been any. So we really don't know what we're looking at in terms of how to assess early voting turnout, right? Because if you don't know what percentage of these early voter turnout is just people who would have come on Election Day and they're just voting early versus new people who haven't voted before, right, who are coming out to vote. There is some evidence that a significant number of the early voters are people who did not vote in 2016. That's probably not good news for Donald Trump. People who didn't vote for 2016 in 2016 in polls that I've seen have generally favored Biden over Trump. But there's no way really to know, what exactly the story is. But we do know, look, there are a lot of people turning out to vote early. There have been a lot of people sending in mail-in ballots. But again, mail-in ballots are up because of COVID. People don't want to necessarily vote in person in the numbers that they have in the past. And also more states have created procedures to make it easier to vote by mail. And also more states have created procedures like New York, for example, where I live for the first time, has early voting. Big difference from before. It also has the ability for people to request a mail-in ballot without an excuse, without a medical excuse or some other reason, which in the past they had to. So the rules really are different this time around in terms of, which makes it difficult to judge in any kind of comparative way, early balloting and mail-in balloting.
And we got to talk about the polling. There's been a lot of polling in recent days showing Biden ahead. But people, as you know, are still scarred from 2016. Do you trust what you're seeing in the polls? And what will you look for in these final days?
Well, it's not so much a matter of trust. Look, the polling in 2016, at least at the national level, really wasn't off at all. The final, again, you don't want to look at one poll. You want to look at the average of polls. The average of polls at the end of 2016 showed Hillary Clinton with a lead nationally popular vote of about 3 to 4%. She won by a little over 2%, or right around 2%, well within the margin of error, right? So that was not off. The problem was that you had certain states, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, where the polling was off to some degree, perhaps because they stopped polling, from what I understand, about 7 or 8 days out, because it looked like Hillary was going to win those states in a landslide, but by a relatively strong margin. So they may have. It's not so much that the polls were off; it's that they stopped polling too soon and missed the late push to Trump. That is one thing about 2016. Very late voters broke for Trump. We don't know how exactly that will play out this time. So it's not so much a matter of trust. It's a matter of the polls last time were pretty good, but we got to make sure we're seeing polls that are done right up to Election Day, and also that are high quality polls. That are done, as opposed to sort of lower quality internet polls or partisan polls. You need to see high quality polls from pollsters with a significant track record.